And we are live. Hello, everybody. It is John Pollock and Wei Ting with your Royal Rumble post show. Hello, Wei.
Hi, John. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. We are coming out of the Royal Rumble event from St. Louis, the dome at America's Center, the center of the wrestling world on Saturday night.
Yeah, I suppose so. Sure. Um, did it feel like that to you?
Um, it certainly had a lot of attention. I think it had most of a lot of people were interested in the show going into it, and I think certainly mixed reviews coming out of it. What did you think of the show as a whole?
I definitely have a different level of excitement going into the Rumble as I do for most WWE pay-per-views. It really does feel like it's a WrestleMania level sort of anticipation. And in most years, I think I come out of it pretty positively. Like the Rumble matches themselves are just they're almost like foolproof, you know.
No, they used to, and I think there's been some misses over the years at times. But yeah, it is a match that, in theory, has been it's tough to screw it up. But they have had their few misses over the years.
Yeah, yeah. So, going in, I was very excited, and I would say I enjoyed, I think, the majority of the matches, and when I say majority, maybe like 60% of it. Some of it was certainly lacking, and I think you can definitely complain about some of the finishes, but I think they really needed to deliver on the men's rumble that closed the show, and I don't think they did that at all.
Yeah, we will get to that. I have my own kind of conclusions from that men's match, but there's a lot to talk about coming out of that. But we'll go in order here, and then we will open it up to feedback and your phone calls if you want to get in and chat. Of course, we are live after all of the premium live events for our double ice cap and espresso members. But the kickoff show way was very little. No match was added onto the kickoff. You had the panel there, and it was largely just a couple of promos here and there. They mentioned the fact that Johnny Knoxville was on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Like the kickoff was completely skippable.
Yeah, and I don't mind it at all. This was a show that was going to run a little bit later anyway. And one of the great things that I think, typically makes the Rumble something I look forward to, and I think usually a positive in the calendar, is the fact that there's not much fat on the show. They don't try to fill the show out with meaningless matches. It's usually just a few title matches, and then your two Rumbles that take up an hour each. So the fact that they didn't even decide to include anything on the kickoff, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, this was still a 4 hour show from when the main show began. So, I mean, back in the days when they were doing like 2 hour kickoffs before some of their big shows and then follow that with a 4 to 4.5 hour show. No, thank you. So whatever.
Mhm.
If you want to hear people talk for an hour, you got that here on the kickoff. But the show proper begins with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins for the WWE Universal Championship. And Roman comes out first, followed by Seth Rollins in his Shield attire, full with Shield music as he came out through the crowd in the stadium.
I thought this was awesome. They really did set the whole thing up nicely, I would say, on SmackDown, with Rollins bringing up the Shield turn and Roman evidently revealing to the audience that he was
Spooked.
traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, spooked by it. It wasn't necessarily, I think, a point in Roman's history that we realized or that they've revealed was so traumatic to him prior to last night. But nonetheless, before the match, they managed to get it in, and I thought it nicely set up this kind of bit of psychological warfare between the two.
Yeah, it was done for a reason. They had set it up nicely. Like they had the creative license to do this because it was not just out of thin air that they
Mm-hmm.
decided just to do something for the sake of doing it. So
And
that was cool.
McAfee did say Mox in reference to the Shield again.
Yeah, it's actually wild that like that's a point that is like brought, like Seth is doing like media stuff. It's like you said Mox. It's like we're so in this world of WWE where it's like these words that are just how could you say his name? That's so crazy.
No, it's silly. It wouldn't be a talking point anywhere else except because we know this company is so careful about how much it recognizes outside of its own boundaries, especially with the rival competitor. like the fact that they did edit out Rollins's mention of Mox in his last promo on a West Coast feed, or at least on a replay, like kind of tells you everything you need to know. So I wonder if this McAfee mention will stay.
Yes. Well, I hope there's no editor that's been forced to go comb through this broadcast for any Mox references. But I thought Seth in particular was a tremendous in this match. He started off with a pair of suicide dives and then power bombs Reigns through the announcer's desk, and Rollins continues with a frog splash, tries for a Phoenix splash that Reigns gets out of the way from, and then had this combination buckle bomb into a stomp for the first big near fall of the match. This is all in the first 5 minutes. So they were going at a very quick pace right out of the gate.
A lot of these moves, including the multiple tope suicidas, they're from his Shield days. This was part of, like, to me, his Shield babyface offense that just kind of further added to the whole, package of him reminding Roman of the Shield breakup.
And at some point in here, Reigns, his eye like got swollen here on something early on going on here. But Reigns fought back. He eventually Rollins went for a triangle, and Reigns just powered out as Reigns then signaled for another one after he spears him on the floor, then goes for another spear into the ring and dives into a pedigree for another near fall. Crowd was really into this at this point. Reigns absorbed several Kawada kicks and then comes off the ropes, lands the spear, and Rollins is laughing and extending his fist towards Reigns. So Reigns locks on the guillotine, and Rollins gets towards the rope, gets hold of the rope, and then Charles Robinson is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the bell is called, and Seth Rollins wins by disqualification at 14 minutes and 25 seconds. So a crappy finish, but a really strong match. And I guess it was, well, we are going to probably prolong this and at least get a second match out of this. Though coming out of tonight, I think this is still a very weird pairing unless they are doing some wholesale change with Seth Rollins, who I don't think comes out of this as that much of a sympathetic babyface, even though there were elements of him kind of portraying the babyface in this match, a total departure from the night before, but that seems to be where things are going.
Yeah, I would say over the course of the last 3 appearances that these two have had, I mean they've each kind of taken a babyface role. The SmackDown prior to this one, it really felt like it was Rollins and Owens in that match being positioned as complete babyfaces throughout that show against the Usos to get that neutral advantage. Last night, it was certainly Rollins taking the more kind of aggressive approach. But I think that was just, in hindsight, more just a way to show that he is somebody who's been getting under Roman's skin and really to set up the story here. So, coming out of this, I do see them keeping... I mean, they're in great position to have Rollins be a full-on babyface coming out of this. But we'll see where they go. I mean, they can change it. It could be the chamber, where Roman might possibly defend this, not just against Rollins, but several other people. DQs, of course, are usually highly disappointing, especially after like a match this good. But I didn't have a huge issue with it, John, because I think so much of this DQ was story-driven. The match was entirely story-driven. I mean, it was physically a fantastic match from the and really, I think, electric though. But from the beginning with the entrances, I think they did a great job here. They set it up the night prior that the Shield breakup was a traumatic event for Roman Reigns, and all throughout this match, you had this, this Seth Rollins, for better or worse, who kind of sees him as a Heath Ledger Joker type, using those tactics to get into Roman's head, and Roman, I think, doing a great job selling the psychological effects of. So
Roman's Batman.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Batman who does a Superman punch. Who's Paul Heyman now? Is he Gordon? Or not Gordon? Alfred. Yeah, I guess he'd be Alfred. He'd be great Alfred. Yeah, and I guess the Usos are like two different Robins. I thought Roman's ability to act completely irritated and confused and angry at times, I thought it was really good. Like, you can tell that he was kind of going crazy, trying to stop this guy who kept reminding him about all the terrible stuff that had happened. So I thought that was successful. I thought the match itself was successful. And yeah, like it's upsetting to see a DQ, but at least I felt like it in story, it made a lot of sense why Roman would be so enraged that he would actually get himself DQ'd this time.
My biggest issue with all of this is the timing of this program that I think is a really good program that is not Roman's main program that's going on. It's like at best, like Seth is a total lame duck challenger now for this rematch that you're going to do. I don't think anyone is suspending their disbelief that Roman is losing this title before WrestleMania. You're probably going to come back to this, if not in Saudi Arabia, then at TV. And I think like this is a feud that would have been like a great feud to do at a time when you have the leeway to flesh it out and tell this story instead of being crammed into this pre-Mania buildup where Lesnar is the focus and everyone knows that's the destination.
You know, unfortunately, this often happens in the February event, March event, in between the WrestleMania and the Rumble. Like, we know what directions we're heading into, and it becomes quite difficult to try to build another viable contender in between when we all know what the main event is going to be. So I think they can only really, honestly, like, do their best, you know, given all this. And we also have to ask, like, was this always the plan? You know, of course, like Roman being out with COVID probably shuffled a lot of things. Was Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns always going to be this Rumble match? Or are they supposed to go to this program at this time? There have been, I guess, suggestions or reports and reporting out there that Rollins was supposed to be the one to win that 4-way. You know, taking the title from Big E. So who knows what had to be juggled to try to get this program at this time.
Yeah, it was a good match. I just think like a DQ, it's going to turn people off on like a big show, but the program will continue. I thought it was though a very good match to start the show, and the audience was very much into it. Up second was and after the angle here, yes, with Roman grabs the chair and pretty much does like the Shield breakup angle where it's Reigns nailing Rollins in the back with the chair and then beating the hell out of him, and pretty much every viewer passed out from the camera cuts here because this was a chair shot galore for WWE production.
I mean, how else do you emphasize a man has lost it by showing
you vomit at home.
Zooms.
That's how you respond. You throw up from just the shakiness of all of this. So that was it. And the crowd chanting Roman sucks and would not be the last of Roman Reigns on this show. Second was the 30-woman Royal Rumble. And we will just go through the entrances here. Were you surprised at all about the placement of the matchway?
No, not so much. Honestly, like you could have led with this, but it going second, not so much. No, were you, John?
No, not that much. It was, I think based on how everything was planned out, the men's match pretty much had to go last.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean they could have started with Brock versus Lashley and then had the men's Rumble second. I'll say like I think this would have been a more satisfying Rumble to end the show on.
Yeah, but you wanted to, you had to get Roman done with his match before the Brock match.
Yeah, well. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
So like this kind of had to go in that sequential order. So Sasha Banks is out number one in this Sailor Moon inspired outfit. This was the second time she has drawn number one in the Rumble. And number two was Melina, who comes out and was clearly moved by the reaction she received. She did the splits that got a big pop.
She was in tears, like in that moment. And in her .com interview too, like she really couldn't contain it. This is her first, and to me, like that's what made this particular Rumble I think so special was a number of returns that you could tell meant a lot to the participants, you know. And even though she didn't last too long in this, I mean, they gave her the spotlight of having a singled out entrance, being number two, and she seemed pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, this was largely based on a lot of names coming back from the past, many of which they announced ahead of time, where it was the pop for their entrance. And then, many of them, it was kind of just coming in, do your spot, get your pop, and then get out of there. That was the case here with Melina, because she just got drilled with a knee and was thrown out. And then Sasha did the splits. And I like the Sasha here at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for most of the cameos, like most of the nostalgia acts, a few aside that they might have future plans with. Yeah, it was get the entrance and then get out.
Tamina was in third, followed by Kelly Kelly. Kelly Kelly did this tilt-a-whirl head scissors where she just like fell off Tamina as if Tamina was blocking it, but then Tamina still sold it. Like she sent herself into the corner. I don't know what happened here. It was like two magnets, and it was just like they repelled one another. So anyway, that was rather wild. I don't know where I'm hearing this feedback. Are you hearing this?
Muted it. Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yep.
Kelly went for a head scissors on Sasha over the top, and then Banks just escaped and knocked Kelly out of the match. Aaliyah was in fifth, and she was in there for quite a long time, as was Liv Morgan, who was the sixth entrant. And she had gone after Sasha at the beginning here. And Liv Morgan was the first person to point to the WrestleMania sign, the cursed WrestleMania sign that ended up, the pyro melted this sign, I believe, on two occasions on the show. It sounds like it got melted again when Brock's pyro went off at the end of the night. This was like wild. They had to bring the sign down at one point.
Yeah. In the middle of the Dewdrop Becky match, everybody in the crowd was looking at something, and quickly the video surfaced of them lowering the sign, and it's smoking and catching on fire. So,
thought Alexa Bliss was coming,
but perhaps, yeah, no. Really unfortunate. I mean, that thing is hung right above people. So,
yeah, thankfully we didn't hear of anyone being injured or anything like that. But still, a scary situation when you have a sign that's like, getting hit by pyro. Like that's a big screw up.
I don't think the sign needs to explode in pyro. I think it just, how about a special light is enough? How about a flashing light?
Well, remember that famous one where like the Undertaker caught fire when he was coming up for that Elimination Chamber, and then he had to go do like a 40-minute match after that. He was like on fire.
Oh yeah, no, pyro is serious, dangerous stuff, man. But hey, like the fans demand it. I don't know, add some atmosphere, but there's certainly risk, of course.
Queen Zelina was in seventh, Bianca Belair eighth, and then Dana Brooke, Michelle McCool. Michelle McCool got in there for a little bit here. She hit her faith breaker on Queen Zelina, and then McCool sent Dana Brooke out. So Dana Brooke was gone, your 24/7 champion.
Yeah, like McCool's entered a previous Rumble or two at this point, and I think she's always actually looked very good, and I thought this was no different. She's still very athletic, and I think is deserving of a longer run because they can probably trust her. Sasha was eliminated relatively early by Zelina.
Oh yeah, we skimmed over this. So Tamina placed Sasha on the apron, and then Zelina just ran and kicked Banks off the apron. So not even someone on the same brand. It was a very anticlimactic elimination for Sasha Banks.
Yeah, it certainly was, and
almost makes you wonder why they even brought her back for this. Like there was no story for her. Like other than like, I guess another star in the match, but it was not even someone that they put like near the end as like a contender to win it, which Banks would be a very believable winner.
I mean, could have been just, them wanting to add a bit of star power at the last minute, knowing that Sasha was available. Do we rule out the idea that she might be traded at some point, in this WrestleMania season, because Big E now is apparently officially
I guess it's always possible that someone is just officially part of a brand now. So you could always do that. It just seems, I mean, unless you're going to have Banks with a partner, go for the tag titles with Zelina here. But even Zelina eliminating her, it's not like it was emphasized in a big way. It was just like you might have like even missed the elimination. Like it was not a huge part of the match.
You're right. Yeah, for somebody of Sasha's star power, it didn't feel that memorable. But we'll see how they play it up, if they do.
Sonia Deville was 11th, but she avoided going in. She had her jacket on and then went out for commentary. Natalya was the 12th entrant. And then Cameron, number 13. She comes out. So Deville takes off her jacket and attacks Cameron. As they explain, Cameron is a good friend of Naomi's. And Cameron just gets run into the post from the apron. She was gone in 60 seconds, like the movie.
Yes, she was. Yeah. My only thought, John, I'm sure yours is as well, was Vinny watching? Was Vinny watching this one?
No, my thought was, and more so afterwards, I was like, oh, she missed Melina And little did I know she was also going to miss Alicia Fox in the same match. How do you screw that up?
You're right. She could have been in there with her dream match opponents. Everybody was in. You're absolutely right, and she was right in between. Yeah. Listen, Cameron, when at least the rumors were that she was in town, I think hardly a name that I think evokes that much excitement amongst. I wonder how much of the audience even remembers her, to be quite honest. But number one, I think I love that music. If anything, just to be able to hear that like Brodus Clay music again, I thought kind of made the entrance worthwhile. And I really loved their use of her to heat up this Sonya Naomi feud as somebody who they recognize, or at least the audience would recognize, would have a prior relationship with Naomi.
Yeah, I almost thought it was like a consistent problem in both Rumbles that I felt like you didn't maximize some of these like moments involving people that you're never going to really have opportunities, or at least like they're like doing something more with Cameron and Naomi before you did the Sonya stuff. The same with like Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, later in the match.
What do you mean? Like you mean like in the Rumble match itself or on TV?
I mean, in the actual Rumble match, it was like, Sarah and Liv, like they looked at each other and then boom, Sarah's like throwing out.
I mean, that was sort of the heat of it all, wasn't it? The fact that they didn't get to team up together before the Bellas quickly eliminated them both. And in this case, I think it was them wanting to get Cameron out of the ring before Naomi came in, just to kind of get angry so that she would have a reason to go after Sonya.
I just think like you could have accomplished both. Like you have Naomi and Cameron have this cool reunion in the ring, and then Sonya ruins it for everybody afterwards. But whatever. It was so Cameron is dumped out. Naomi is next, and she checks on Cameron and then goes after Deville, and Naomi eliminates Deville with a head kick and knocks her off of the apron. But Deville would remain ringside. Carmella was 15th. Followed by Ria Ripley, who got like a big reaction. And I thought Ripley was handled pretty well here. She came in and was just steamrolling through people and ended up getting the spot where she eliminated both Zelina and Carmella, with the tag champions being dumped out by Ripley and the crowd chanting for her on top of that.
Yeah. She took out both tag champions.
Charlotte Flair was 17th. So she comes out. She eliminates Aaliyah, who had been there for quite a while at this point. She had been the longest one in the ring so far. Then Naomi is sent over and she stops the elimination with her hands, but there is Sonya, who yanks her out by the arms, and Naomi is eliminated. That was a great elimination.
Great. I mean, of course, because Naomi at this point is, much like Kofi Kingston, known for the spectacular saves. And they teased that we were going to see something incredible here with Naomi doing some sort of weird handstand thing. And out of nowhere, I guess Sonya must have been hiding behind the boards or something. She comes out and ruins it. I thought it was a little great like heat building moment that I think continues this feud. I mean, clearly, despite the clean finish that we had on Friday, I think it does something to reinvigorate it.
Yeah, and you had fans probably all disappointed saying, "Oh, we want to see Naomi's cool spot." Oh, what are we thinking? We've got Kofi. Kofi's going to give us that awesome spot later in the night. So don't worry, we'll be rewarded. 18th was Ivory. She comes out in her right to censor character, cutting a promo about all the women in the ring are wayward, lost little girls. And Ripley just lifts her up, places her on the apron, pats her on the head, and knocks her out. I've got to say this. Ivory, do you know how old Ivory is?
She is 60. We all looked up how old she was after this.
This is crazy.
Okay?
She looks incredible. She has not aged a day.
She is 60 years old. Tina Ferrari looking tremendous. I mean, even in the probably like in the late 90s when she debuted, I think, she seems like somebody who's completely ageless. But it was a bit of a surprising choice. When I think of Ivory, I don't necessarily think of right to censor, but yet that was the gimmick that they came out with her dressed as, even giving her promo time. I definitely felt a bit nostalgic hearing that right to censor music, if you want to call it that. That was kind of cool. And I mean, I suppose at this age, I don't know how much physicality she's capable of, but as far as like playing the character and doing a right to censor promo and giving us that entrance in the spot, I actually thought this was a lot of fun.
Brie Bella was 19th, got a pretty big reaction. She started a yes chant with the crowd. Mickie James comes out 20th. And of note here is that she got to come out to Hardcore Country and wearing the Knockouts championship. So they certainly did a solid here for Impact.
Yeah. I mean, this seemed like it was always part of the deal, you know? Do you honestly think what do you think Impact gained from this?
I mean, this is always one of those things where on the surface, you're like, oh, your title was seen on a show. I don't really believe any of this stuff has much of a trickle down effect. Like Impact's going to do some crazy number now because Mickie was on this, but it doesn't hurt. And it's good for Mickie. I don't know if it really will transcend to anything for Impact, but it certainly does absolutely no harm at all. Right. And like she was not presented in here. Like this was not one where she comes in and was eliminated in 10 seconds. Like she was in here for a good amount of time. She got to come out with her title. She even had like an elimination, I think, in here. I don't have the eliminations in front of me, but
she eliminated Michelle McCool.
Yeah, it was like they totally did not like bring her in to just be some afterthought. It was like a solid entry in the Rumble.
True, yeah. It was a bit surreal for me to hear Hardcore Country like in a WWE environment. I thought it was a really cool moment.
She was one of the more over people in the whole match.
Yeah.
So McCool and Mickie paired off here, and that's when Mickie eliminated Michelle McCool. Alicia Fox was 21st. No Amdar with her though.
I've totally forgotten that that pairing. Oh my god, so much awfulness. Rocking some new tattoos.
Yeah, she's got like sleeves.
Yeah.
Nikki Ash was 22nd, and Ripley is waiting on Nikki to enter when Nikki comes from behind to try to eliminate her, but it doesn't work. Nikki backs off and then rolls to the floor, avoiding Rhea. Summer Rae was 23rd. She goes after Natalya.
I mean, I don't know if Ivory stuck around because we could have used a bit of her censorship here, because Summer Rae comes out and she looks at Natalya in the ring, and the camera is right up to her, and you can hear her mouth, "Fuck you," as she charges the ring. So, what a return from Summer Rae.
Well, there you go. Welcome back, Summer Rae. Nikki Bella was 24th. So
hey, listen, this was a big moment. Nikki Bella returning, this was somebody returning after a retirement due to her neck issues. And somebody, let's give it up for all the moms that were able to so a lot of the new moms that were able to perform throughout this show.
There were a lot. I think there was a count of 9 moms in this match.
Incredible.
That's incredible.
And it's just the shape that they were all in. I mean, I'm sure it was a huge moment for all of them and their families, and being able to wrestle in front of their kids, however old that their kids might be, but still it's a tremendous achievement. And I felt incredibly happy for Nikki and the Bellas to have their kids be able to see them.
Yeah, we even got the Team Bella reunion with Alicia Fox. Did everyone remember that pairing?
Dude, I forgot about that. But it was nice that they find these moments to pay tribute to the history. Yeah, sure, why not?
And then as soon as they all cheered, they knocked Alicia out, so she was gone. Sarah Logan 25th, and Logan and Morgan, they just they looked at one another, but then it was cut off by the Bellas, and Logan is thrown out instantly. So she was one of those just in and out.
This was to me, it was a really sweet moment, actually. I think everybody knows how close the Riot Squad members were with each other, and how legitimately heartbreaking it was, I think, when they each found out that, I mean, when Ruby was released, I'm sure it was disappointing, but I think the one that probably hit them hardest, the one that broke up the group, was Sarah Logan. So for them to actually craft this little moment of Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan kind of locking eyes, I thought it was quite emotional. And also great because this was the moment where the Bellas, quickly after returning, turned heel on the crowd by quickly attacking them. So I thought it was really well designed.
The Bellas then placed Liv on the apron, and Brie kicked her out. So Liv was in this thing for about 37 minutes, at least according to the broadcasters. Lita came out, really big reaction for Lita, and she had an exchange with Mickie, and then she eliminates Mickie, and the crowd seemed a little disappointed that Mickie was out here. She was certainly one of the more popular entries in the whole match. Flair and Lita then paired off together. 27 was Mighty Molly, and she comes out, and Nikki Ash is still on the floor and blindsides her and sends Molly into the steps and then rolls her into the ring, tears off the cape, and dumps out Molly. I love this. I thought this was one of the more creative things I thought on either Rumble was putting Molly Holly and Nikki Ash together.
I loved it. Absolutely. And it wasn't even something I put together the moment I saw Molly Holly out there. You know, it's like, okay, like Molly Holly's returned as the superhero. I think 2 years ago, she returned to the Rumble. But I didn't put two and two together that like we now had a modern superhero in the company who just storms in here, plays the heel, and takes care of the superhero of old. I thought it was great. And of course, Molly being an agent in the back, like, maybe this was, you know, a long time plan, but it was the perfect interaction for a heel Nikki Ash.
Yeah, I wouldn't even like disregard the idea of like doing this on Raw some week.
Great
like,
idea. Yeah, if she can go, yeah.
28 is Ronda Rousey, and the place goes wild for her. She comes out, everyone stops in the ring, and she enters and immediately super kicks Nikki Ash off the apron. Brie then we do the spot here where Brie runs and knocks into Nikki, and Nikki holds on, but then Brie just shoves out Nikki. So it's the payback for several years ago where Nikki eliminated Brie.
Oh, I didn't even recognize that.
Yes.
All right.
So Ronda, it certainly felt like she was still getting used to worked strikes. Like it seemed like she was being very careful at different points with like her punches and even some of her knees. But nonetheless, it's kind of tough to be, you're coming back here, however many years later, and it's in a battle royal setting. But the crowd was going nuts for her,
and not long removed from giving birth herself.
Yeah, she's another mother here in the show. Shotzi was 29th, and Shayna Baszler was 30th. So Shayna Baszler has largely just been brought back to life in WWE with the return of Ronda Rousey. So they immediately brought up that connection and established those two together. Rousey had thrown out Brie in the corner. Then she eliminated Shotzi. Belair eliminated Natalya, but then Natalya ran back in and got eliminated a second time when Ronda threw her out. So I don't know what was going on there. I guess they're going to try and make some record that she was eliminated more than anyone in this match.
People have been, I feel, eliminated more than twice. What about Mick Foley?
Mick Foley would have 3, but maybe the Guinness record for a number of times a woman has been eliminated in the Royal Rumble.
Okay, sure. These books must be pretty big to have such specific records in there.
They're like, yeah, sure. Will you promote this on TV for us? You can have whatever record you want. Lita teased the moonsault, but was cut off, and Flair sent Lita out with the running boot. Ripley and Rousey then landed on the edge of the apron. Ripley shoved Rousey into the post, but was left for Flair to find an opening, sending Ripley out with a boot. So our final 4 are Charlotte, Belair, Rousey, and Baszler. And Belair countered the Kirifuda clutch into a KOD attempt, but Flair comes and sends both over the top rope. So Flair and Rousey are your last 2, and they did not do anything extended here. Flair ran with a boot, was caught, and thrown over the top, and Ronda Rousey is your winner in 59 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah, in both Rumbles, the final 2, they didn't really make a big deal of, nor the final 4. And maybe that was, because of time, perhaps, or maybe just because, why delay what's inevitable anyway. The moment I think Ronda Rousey entered this, I think most of us recognize who was going to win. I thought this Rumble was really great. I had a lot of fun watching it. I thought it was really well booked. There were a lot more surprises than the men's, certainly. And even the returns that they've announced, there's still something special about them, seeing them, for the first time in many years, when they do come out here. I thought none of the nostalgia acts overstayed their welcomes, and didn't and many of the current storylines that they're working towards and building. I thought actually kind of benefited from some of these returns. They were given amount of time, like Naomi and Sonia, I think, was furthered here. Shayna and Ronda getting paired together. I hope we get to see a bit more of an extended version of that. So it shows to me that there's some really great stories and some great characters in the women's division that we don't really get to see displayed, unfortunately, in the actual matches themselves. But I thought the Rumble was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought it was like a fun Rumble. I wouldn't go so far as to say I thought it was great, but I thought it was like an enjoyable Rumble. That was, I mean, they made the right call of, utilizing a lot of names from the past and surprises. But you do have like a lot of characters that have different stories that are going on that you were able to kind of weave into this. And I guess when you look at it, they're also shorthanded a lot of their, quote unquote stars that are on the roster at the moment. When you don't have Asuka at the moment, you don't have Bailey. Alexa Bliss was not in this match, who's commands a lot of television time typically.
Yeah.
I was only disappointed that like Sasha, it just felt like was just kind of in the early part, and it was like we didn't have a whole lot planned for the early part, so we'll put Sasha there, and she was just kind of divorced from the rest of this match. But it was also probably a very late call when they figured she could even be in this match.
Could be that, we don't know the complete extent of her injury. So maybe they're being extra cautious. I don't know. But I'm curious, John, to see like who of the returns are going to be sticking around, especially come Mania season. Who can you see, John?
I mean, they teased this stuff with like Charlotte and Lita, but that it kind of feels like that's kind of feels like we're past that already now that Charlotte and Ronda clearly looks to be like the direction they're heading. They had like the stare down after the match. That certainly seems to be where things are going. You could throw out Lita there. I don't know. I look at all of these names that just came back. I mean, are there any that you see like sticking around?
I could see the Bellas, doing some sort of tag team run.
Right. Yeah, that would have maybe be the only two I could see really doing something. And maybe
I would
maybe
love
Lita.
if they actually kept Sarah Logan at least, for a little bit to team with Liv Morgan against the Bellas. Like just a bit of a program there for I think would probably be something for Liv Morgan if they do consider her a bit of a project, you know. Yeah, probably don't see many of the others returning. I mean, Ivory, Alicia Fox, I think those are more one night things. I love the idea of Molly Holly, Nikki Ash, as a Raw match. I think that would be a lot of fun, or at least a Raw segment. Let me see what else here. Also notable, of course, no NXT talent in this Rumble.
No, I don't think you necessarily needed it. When you were really banking on sort of nostalgia for this, and you obviously had enough names here that you were going to go through. But yeah, neither match, I should say, had any NXT talent on it. So after that, this is where they had the whole problem with the WrestleMania sign, because the pyro went off for Ronda Rousey, and they noted that she will be on Raw on Monday night. So what did you think just about the handling of Ronda Rousey coming back, and how she looked, and her actually winning the match? How did you think she looked?
I thought she looked about like similar to the level that I think we saw her at prior. Somebody with great intensity in the ring. I think managed to play the character of somebody who's like completely like a world beating type of monster really well in the ring. Obviously, I think still has a lot of imperfections to her smoothness in the ring. That was the case the last time she was around too, but she looked similar to me to how she looked before.
And how about Charlotte as an opponent? Like, certainly that's one where I don't think you're going to have to be fighting the crowd of like which way they're going to react, which I think if you were going with Ronda and Becky, I think that would be a bit more interesting to see where the crowd goes after several weeks. I think with Ronda and Charlotte, you are going to have that babyface heel dynamic that they want.
It's true, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, you also have to ask, what is the bigger match, that you can headline one of these WrestleMania nights with? What is the bigger match that, would be able to garner mainstream press if you're getting the both of them to do media? Is it Charlotte and Ronda, or is it Ronda Becky? And we also have Bianca Belair that's out there. I certainly see a lot of outrage as expected that Bianca Belair did not win this Royal Rumble. She is somebody who I think the long-term story from the moment she lost the title to Becky at SummerSlam seemed to be for her to get that match against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. Is that in jeopardy? following this? Yeah,
I mean,
I would definitely say so.
Becky Lynch. I mean, the way this ended, I mean, this real like Charlotte was eliminated by Ronda. Like I see that only makes sense to go that way. I think this benefits Bianca in the sense that, I mean, it only makes logical sense. She should be the one that gets the Becky match now.
But people switch brands, like Ronda has the choice of either opponent, and whoever eliminates the other person at the end isn't necessarily, doesn't necessarily directly lead to the Rumble plans. But of course, John, I mean, I trust your instincts on this and maybe, some of your knowledge. So you could be right.
Well, she'll be on Raw on Monday. And
do you think she goes to Raw or SmackDown?
I mean, it seems like based on the reporting that's out there that, she'll probably be appearing on both, but it looks like SmackDown is going to be kind of her main show for the lead up to WrestleMania.
So then maybe Charlotte would be the more likely candidate then.
I just think the way it was played out tonight, I mean, like you had like Dave Meltzer's report today about like that being the direction, and just watching it for myself tonight, it just seems like that was the value of having Charlotte in this match, was whoever eliminates her, that should be the reason that Charlotte's in this match. And with the face off after the match, like it just seems that is the direction to go. And I guess that leaves open Bianca to go for the Raw women's title.
I mean, here's the thing is that, I mean, any match can headline WrestleMania, because certainly like going into last year's WrestleMania, Bianca versus Sasha to me hardly felt like the hottest match going in. I thought the build was terrible, yet they chose to headline with it. And I think we all can say that that was the right choice. It was the most memorable thing to come out of that WrestleMania. But I'm just looking on paper right now, if one can either of those women's matches, either Becky versus Bianca or Charlotte versus Ronda, do either of them feel like they're worthy of headlining the show?
It also is, the fact is we didn't know Bianca and Sasha was going on last until the day before they announced it on SmackDown. It's almost like you go with the program that feels the hottest, that the fans will take, that is not going to turn the crowd off in that final position on the show. I would hope that Ronda and Charlotte is a big enough match that come WrestleMania weekend, if they want to close the first night with that they can, if your other option is like Reigns and Lesnar for night 2.
Yeah, I could see the crowd turning on both Ronda and Charlotte. And for that reason, I definitely feel like Bianca versus Becky would probably be the more like feel good, closing moment of the show. I think you're already seeing a lot of resentment for Ronda Rousey, as like the outsider coming in, and Charlotte, I think, is always going to have some detractors. So I think they'll have a bit of they could potentially have difficulty, with the babyface dynamics.
There's also the argument way that yes, Ronda and Charlotte might be going into that, like those are your bigger stars, but putting Bianca in that kind of a position, if we're theorizing that she finally beats Becky, putting that on last, like one thing, and this is much more glaring, I would say, in the men's match, is just the lack of stars on this roster that your audience sees as stars. And it's something that sometimes you have to take that and put that stock into your own talent and put them in those positions where people see people as stars. Like we had a men's rumble where I would say the first 40 minutes, I don't think anyone was buying any of these people winning the Rumble, and it's all your everyday roster members. And that's not a good thing.
Yep, absolutely.
And this women's match was held up by having the fact that we do not have enough spots here to even fill them with the women that we have, and had to rely on surprises and entrances that were going to get people's interest. Like they had to be very creative with the women's match.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that is indeed the two directions for the two women's titles, I would certainly hope that Bianca versus Becky would get the main spot.
So following the women's rumble was Becky Lynch and Doudrop, and they went just about 13 minutes here. Doudrop missed a cannonball on the floor and ended up going into the steps, holding on to her knee, which would play into the ending later. She broke free of a disarmer, so Lynch moved to the straight armbar, and Doudrop lifted and slammed her, allowing Jimmy Smith to say she rampaged out of it. So that was the closest we got to a Ricardo Arona reference on this show. Lynch got the knees up when Doudrop attempted the bonsai drop, and then Lynch hit her own Molly go round for a 2 count, as it was called. And then Doudrop stops the manhandle slam and hits like her version of a Rikishi driver for a 2 count. And Doudrop climbs to the middle rope. Lynch chop blocks the bad knee and hits a manhandle slam off the second rope and pins her in 12 minutes, 58 seconds.
I thought the match was okay, if not a little dull. And, maybe some of it had to do with the lack of crowd reaction coming off of a Rumble match. And also, of course, due to the sign being on fire and everybody being distracted from it.
They had a lot going against them here. It was also, let's be honest, it was a cold challenger. I don't think anyone in this stadium believed Doudrop was winning this match. So and it went 13 minutes as well.
You're also talking about a heel versus babyface match when the heel is the smaller woman going up against a babyface giant who really is not a babyface. Let's remember, everybody, Doudrop prior to this Becky Lynch challenge was a heel, and I would contend she probably still is a heel. So it's double heel, and it's a small person going up against the bigger underdog. And I don't think it was anywhere near the level of match nor build to convince the crowd that Doudrop had any chance of winning.
Yeah, I agree with all that you said. They had a lot going against them. I think it was fine. Also, it could have been shorter. I think when you're following the Rumble, really tough to come back with like this 13-minute match, and your sign's on fire on top of it. Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship.
They announced the attendance.
Oh, that's right. What silly number did we get? The number was 44,300. 390. So yes, WrestleTix noting there were like 39,400 out. So, I mean, to be fair to WWE, this is only like an exaggeration of like 5,000 people. So, I mean, they're getting better at these.
Did they say this was a record? Like, did they just?
They said it was the most attended WWE show since the Rumble from 2 years ago. Okay. Which I think is accurate. I think that we don't know what the legit number is. It's probably maybe a little above like the 39,000 figure. And I have to compare that to what SummerSlam did, because SummerSlam would be the biggest at this point. This definitely did better than those either night of Mania last year.
All right.
So Brock and Bobby Lashley, Heyman comes out and does the introduction for Lesnar. And they just get into suplexes here at the beginning. Each is delivering their own. Lesnar lifts him up for the F5, but it's stopped, and Lashley hits a spear, then a second spear, and Lesnar rolls to the floor in pain. Lashley goes for another on the floor, misses, crashes through the barricade, and then they go back into the ring. Lesnar gets control, and he's back to doing German suplexes and counting after each one. He goes for the F5. Lashley counters into the Hurt Lock, and Lesnar runs Lashley into the referee to break free. Lashley tries again for the submission, and this time Lesnar counters with an F5, swinging Lashley into the referee and knocking him out. So Roman Reigns appears to spear Lesnar, and then Reigns stares at Heyman and signals for the belt, and Heyman complies, handing the title to Roman Reigns, and Reigns nails Lesnar with the belt shot, and Lashley just climbs on top, capitalizing on the interference, and Lashley is the new WWE champion. 10 minutes, 14 seconds.
Title change here. Yeah. Before we kind of get into the shenanigans of the angle, I thought like the match between the two was very good to me. I thought Lashley and Brock really delivered on sort of like the promised, kaiju monster battle between two people portrayed as equals in the build and in the lead up to this. I thought the physicality was fantastic, and I would really love to see an entire series of matches between these two, with a proper
they left this open that you could go to a rematch at some point. Like there is Lashley winning. I would actually be surprised if they didn't do another match at some point.
Yeah, once sort of like the dust of WrestleMania settles and they get through with this Roman Heyman program. And of course, the big story is Roman coming out and revealing that he and Paul, it was a ruse this entire time. I think we can assess, at least for my assessment, I thought they did a good job swerving us into thinking the Roman Heyman relationship was over. I love how like Roman just kind of showed up. He has such poise now. Anytime he like comes out there, and with the slightest movement, he's able to, I think, say a whole lot. And in this case, it was simply him coming in, eyeing Paul, and then lifting his hand out to get the belt. So, And let's also remember, like, who knows what sort of weird dance they had to do after Roman got out of, was taken out of day one with COVID in order to get to this spot. But do you think, John, the direction was always going to be, hey, Roman Reigns is the heel with Paul Heyman by his side? And do you think it'll be Brock as a babyface heading into Mania?
I think absolutely at day one, it was going to be something with Heyman somehow. Well, it's how they get there that I guess is the interesting part, because they just fast forwarded that so that the Monday Heyman's all of a sudden with Brock Lesnar. So you have to imagine that somehow Heyman was going to leave with Lesnar at day one. But how does that exactly work if it was all going to be just a ruse in the end?
I don't know. I have no idea what sort of mental gymnastics or what sort of dancing around they did. And
I think it worked out for the best. I think that the way that it was swerved, where Lesnar ends up with this title, made this show a lot more interesting, because you had the idea of probably Lesnar's title changing, but maybe not. And I think overall, I think it enhanced where things were going. You were not going to get Lesnar and Lashley, and that was a great bet. I would say most people, that was the most anticipated thing on this show going in today.
Agreed, yeah. And was Lashley always supposed to get the belt off of this? And what is his WrestleMania direction?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think everyone knows it is like Lesnar and Reigns, but you actually have like a storyline reason of why Lesnar would at least be wanting to go for Bobby Lashley. And remember, you have Saudi Arabia. Like, what are you going to do with Lesnar on this Saudi Arabia show? That has to be something of importance. That's actually why I thought that you maybe save Lesnar losing the title here, and then he gets his shot at the Chamber. But they went this way tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they would go to a Lashley Brock rematch so soon, especially when Brock, I think has a pretty clear direction with Roman Reigns right now.
And having to likely beat Lesnar again. I don't think you would want to do that as well. Yeah. Or come up with some. That was the only thing. It was like, on their own, I can stomach either of these title finishes, but on both of them, I think that can wear thin for some people on like a major show like this. But this was more so how much you're invested in the story, that I think you will be forgiving of how they got there with the finish, that I think on its own can be a turnoff at times to people.
What do you think happens to Seth Rollins coming out of all of this?
I think with Rollins, well, I think in the immediate is like you're obviously continuing this Reigns thing, and then probably he's going to spiral off into a different thing after they finish this Reigns program.
Yeah, like, does he stay on SmackDown? Like, is he going to be in the SmackDown Chamber match, or does he go back to Raw? He's also got a thing going on with Kevin Owens. I mean, these sort of like, team up rivalries tend to end up in some sort of matchup. I mean, the timing would make sense if they wanted to do Seth versus KO. But what is the direction of Seth Rollins coming out? Do they change course with him? And do they make him a babyface, or was that the plan this whole time? I'm not sure. It's a lot more unpredictable than usual.
How did you feel about like Lashley here? Because I mean, this was not about Bobby Lashley winning the title. That almost felt like a bit of an afterthought here to Reigns and Lesnar. It was more so Lesnar lost the title as opposed to Lashley winning it in this like underhanded fashion. But
I don't think that should surprise anybody, because Brock Lesnar throughout this entire thing, like, he has been sort of like Vince's most protected monster, Vince's favorite monster, and Bobby Lashley wasn't even supposed to be in this title match. So who knows if he was even supposed to end up with the belt here. So yeah, unfortunately, he does feel like an afterthought, but I think he's a very worthy champion who I think can possibly headline a WrestleMania match, or at least, be in a title match at WrestleMania, possibly against Big E. Is there enough interest in that? Seth Rollins?
Are you asking
Lashley?
For interest in Big E on the fan base, or interest
in the match,
in the company?
Lashley versus Big E. If that's,
I don't know. I watched that Royal Rumble, and I certainly did not see Big E as somebody that is poised for a main event at WrestleMania. It certainly did not feel like that.
No, you're right. Tonight did not look.
And you just moved him to another brand away from Lashley. So
yeah, it was not a good day for the New Day.
Edge and Beth Phoenix against The Miz and Maurice. Maurice was trying to avoid Beth. Edge and Beth, their entrance was pretty fantastic.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
It looked really good in a stadium. So their kids were there in the front row.
I know. Awesome.
That was really cool. So Edge would run the ropes, and Maurice is like grabbing his hair. They got the heat on the heat on Edge for a while until he hit an impaler DDT. And then it was Beth that gets the tag, and she would constantly go after Maurice. Miz stands up to Beth, and Beth just lifts up Miz and puts him into the corner and starts attacking him. There was quite a lot of like intergender spots in this match, many more than you would typically see in a
from Beth setting. Really just from Beth against the Miz.
Yeah, but a fair amount of it in this. Maurice tries to grab Edge's foot. He goes for a spear, and Miz leapfrogs him. Maurice then comes off the top with a Rana delivered to Edge, and it led to a skull-crushing finale for a 2 count on Edge. And then Maurice and Miz try a double skull-crushing finale, which Beth saves Edge from. They hit a double spear on Miz, and then Edge and Beth follow with stereo glam slams, and Edge pins the Miz in 12 minutes and 30 seconds.
You know, I thought for one of these mixed gender matches, I thought it was okay. To me, like, much of these types of matches is driven by the intensity of the crowd, and I didn't really feel it here. And I don't know if it was simply because of the placement of this match after, 2 world title matches. I mean, 3 world title matches, 1 Rumble and 1 Rumble left in a 4-hour show. I can say for myself personally, I was just kind of forgot about this match and was kind of looking for it to just kind of be out of the way in order to get to the Rumble. I also don't think there's that much novelty in seeing, intergender action anymore, especially when it's Beth Phoenix, who I think, has sort of made a whole career out of fighting men. So it was okay, but to me, not anything memorable.
Yeah, I thought it was fun for what it was. It wasn't some like classic or anything like that. It was. I thought it was fine. I thought they certainly put a lot of thought into some of the intergender spots and coming up with like the tandem stuff with Edge and Beth Phoenix. So it was what it was. I enjoyed this a lot more than I did the Edge Miz singles match earlier this month. Promo for Elimination Chamber, which is coming up in 3 weeks. There was a special feature on Captain Florent Groberg, who was a Medal of Honor recipient, and he was in the front row and received a standing ovation. And to close the show, it is the 30-man Royal Rumble with Michael Cole and Pat McAfee calling this. The Raw team called the women's match, and Pat McAfee was screaming at the top of his lungs as Michael Cole cautioned him about how long this match is and to pace himself. So AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura start this Royal Rumble, a far journey since Wrestle Kingdom 10.
A lot has happened since, yeah.
Anyway,
to both men's careers.
So Styles avoids the Kinshasa and responds with a sliding forearm. Austin Theory is out third. Robert Roode is fourth. And Roode and Styles have this face-off, and I couldn't believe that there was a brief TNA chant. This might have been the first time since that Rosie O'Donnell, Donald Trump segment on Raw years ago that there was a TNA chant at a WWE event.
Somebody out there remembers Fortune. Somebody is nostalgic for that time. I was surprised too. I was surprised that they even crafted this spot. That some agent out there was like, Rude and AJ, we gotta do a shout out to TNA.
Yeah, well, and then Styles said no and threw him out, and there goes Rude. Yeah. Ridge Holland was 5th, Montez Ford 6th, Damian Priest 7. Was Damian going to come to the Royal Rumble? Sami Zayn
it was actually Priest, John. We didn't get Damian yet.
Yes, yeah, Damian maybe that'll be tomorrow. Zayn was 8th, and Zayn just didn't go after anyone, so Ford then just attacked him. So we're just piling up names at this point. Johnny Knoxville is 9th, and he comes out with members of the Jackass crew, and he immediately takes down Zayn, and then he gets into this exchange with Styles, who just lights this dude up with strikes. Ford hits Knoxville with From the Heavens, where he pretty much landed on his knees, and I bet Ford just took all of this on his own knees to protect this guy. Holland then just places Knoxville on the apron, and Zayn eliminates him with the haluva kick, and then Styles comes from behind and dumps out Zayn. So that was our Johnny Knoxville involvement, which, to be quite honest, was pretty inoffensive. It was quick.
It was inoffensive, and I thought it was, to be honest, John, it was the first entertaining spot of the
Dude, there was nothing.
match.
There was nothing
Yeah.
for me to recap before Johnny Knoxville showed up. Like this was for 40 minutes of this, like I would say like 35 of this 50-minute match. It was like
Nothing.
guys were just coming in and it was just the most basic battle royal stuff. Like not even interesting combinations. There were no surprises, which that's another crutch, is that I think people are so tuned now for surprises that just people on the roster, it's like a letdown for people. But you've also got like stars that are not over to your audience. And that's like, no one's holding their breath here about any of these people that have entered that are going to be of consequence for the final minutes of this match. Angelo Dawkins was 10th, and then Omos 11th. So I don't think the 20-1 odds were going to be coming in once I saw him coming in at 11th. This man was not going 35 minutes here. So Omos tosses out Dawkins. He catches Ford, sends him out. Then he focuses on AJ, and he throws AJ's ribs into the post. Ricochet is 12th. He just gets pressed in the air. Then Chad Gable comes out. Gable rallies everyone against Omos, and they send Damian Priest out first. And Omos just gets the best of Damian Priest and tosses him out like he is nothing. Dude, Damian Priest felt like any advancement you made felt like it was just completely squandered here. He felt like nothing.
Well, I mean, he tossed out Priest. He didn't toss out Damian. So maybe Damian will get his.
Dude, that I do think like that's probably where Omos is going here with Damian Priest.
Could be, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like it's a giant. It's the Rumble. It's sort of a match type design for the Giant. So I think they always have that excuse. I don't think it hurts Damian Priest.
Well, I mean, we were left here with these names. Dominic was out 14th. Dominic just joins everyone. They're all ganging up to take out Omos. And finally, with all of them trying to lift him over, Styles delivers a flying forearm. And somehow, I don't know how the logistics of this work, but this flying forearm was enough to send the man over the top rope and to the floor.
Momentum.
Yeah. Happy Corbin was out 15th. Dolph Ziggler in his 15th Royal Rumble behind Kane for total matches. And then Corbin just hits the deep six and sends out Dominic. How many weeks and promos of Ray and Dominic did we have to sit through? And they didn't even have an interaction in this match. They weren't even there together.
You're very right, John. Yeah. It's almost as if
every single week they dedicated time to what these two were going to do if they were in the ring together, and it never happened.
Well, I will say, John, I've totally forgotten about that entire build until you just mentioned it now, and I'm assuming whoever put this Rumble together probably did as well, because it was insignificant. I mean, they really are, I think, just two people that they use to remind people that, hey, there's a match happening, and you might even see a dad, take a son over the top rope, and by the time the match came about, it was an afterthought.
So after beating him on TV, Styles eliminated Austin Theory. So that was it for Austin. Sheamus was 17th, but he arrives just as Ridge Holland is sent out. So Sheamus goes after AJ for retribution. Rick Boogs is 18th, and he got to do all his power spots here with Gable and eliminated him with a military press.
To no reaction.
It was...
I don't think that anybody gave a shit. I'm wondering if half the crowd even recognize this guy anymore with his short hair. He just looks so generic, and I was kind of like, I kind of liked the idea that last night that he was doing the Hulk up spot as if he was some 80s wrestler, but clearly this crowd didn't give a shit about these 80s power moves. Like he's just incredibly bland right now.
At 19, Madcap Moss comes out, and I was like, my God, this has to be the most dull first 2/3 of a Rumble. Mm-hmm. Like it was just like, I have nothing of note to really share. It was people in a ring throwing strikes at one another and climbing into the corner with one another.
Yeah, I think it put a really poor microscope on this current undercard and how
not over so many of them are.
Yeah, none of the characters are interesting. They're either terrible, like this Madcap Moss, Happy Corbin thing, or unidentifiable, like a Rick Boogs, or just, people who...
Or you don't take seriously that, like, you're not... Oh, Ziggler's in the Rumble. Happy Corbin's in the Rumble. Chad Gable, Ricochet, Dawkins. Like, honestly, of all these names, like, I wouldn't even like AJ. I was like, yeah, guy's not winning this.
Mm-hmm. No,
Omos.
this to me is not an indictment about the talent, but the indictment of the poor job they've done throughout the rest of the year in showcasing all these guys. They're just kind of jokes.
20th was Riddle, so he got a good reaction coming out here. Corbin and Moss eliminated Boogs, so he's out. Drew McIntyre was 21st, so making his return here and kind of our first big star. I would say, like, outside of AJ, this was like the first big star.
Riddle's a bit of a star.
Yeah, I guess. Were you thinking Riddle has a chance to win this Rumble?
I mean, I didn't think many people had a chance outside of one person, but Drew was a contender. Yeah, the only other one.
Drew eliminates Corbin and Moss for the revenge, and then he kills these guys with steps on the floor. Kevin Owens is 22nd, and McIntyre and Owens start fighting on the floor. Rey Mysterio is 23rd. Kofi Kingston is 24th, and this is where Kofi gets shoved off the top by Owens, and then he is supposed to cling onto the barricade. Unfortunately, his feet so clearly touch the floor, and they just put their hands in the air. They show the replay, so even in slow motion, it's like, yeah, he's gone. He's gone. And that was it. He was out.
You know, again, everybody, this Rumble was pretty much down in the dumps. We're like at entry number 24 with really Johnny Knoxville being the highlight of this Rumble. So it so much was reliant on the Kofi Kingston spot to really kind of save this thing. And even that went wrong tonight. The one time, you know.
What a metaphor. Nothing sticks.
Yes. And I think maybe it's more of a time to remind ourselves like how impressive it was that the last many times that he's managed to successfully pull this off, how impressive it was, because there's only one take that you can do it. And most human beings would have done exactly what he did tonight, and that's not stick the landing perfectly and have his feet touch the floor. This was incredibly disappointing. I wonder what he had planned. You know, we're always going to wonder now, and it just kind of further deflated this crowd, I thought.
Well, if they randomly announce tomorrow night a 15-man battle royal on, or I guess we'll have to wait till SmackDown. Then we'll find out. We'll just do a battle royal, and Kofi can
maybe he'll just do the spot in the match, like in the middle, like of a tag team match or something.
25 was Otis, and then 26 was Big E, who came out, followed by Bad Bunny at 27th. And Bad Bunny was he was like one of the biggest stars in this whole Rumble.
The other highlight of this.
Yeah, he comes in and he hits a high cross on Sheamus, tilt-a-whirl head scissors on Kevin Owens, and then a Canadian destroyer onto Riddle before Sheamus goes after him. Bad Bunny then hangs onto the rope, and Sheamus misses a bro kick and flies to the floor, so he's gone. Bad Bunny then works with Ray together. Ray hits a 619 before Bunny tosses Ziggler out of the ring. And then Otis comes and eliminates Rey Mysterio. But yeah, Bad Bunny was like one of the most featured people in this entire match and was one of the high points, which I don't know what that says about your entire 30 entrance, that Bad Bunny was like one of the most consequential additions to this match.
I don't know either, John. Yeah.
Think about the fact that Bad Bunny had way more spotlight and things to discuss than your outgoing WWE champion in Big E, who was just, I think you would honestly, if you were not paying attention, wouldn't have even realized Big E was in this match. That's how trivial he felt in this. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I have to say, I do wonder if Kofi's early exit affected anything else in the match. I mean, Big E came out right afterwards, so you have to imagine there was going to be some New Day double teaming interactions. Did that affect his elimination at all? Did that affect his place in his spots? I'm not really sure.
I would have told you. I wasn't going to say I could guarantee Big E was winning this Rumble, but the fact that Big E was not even there till the end. I mean, maybe they just didn't want him in towards the end, but I think this makes him look just as inconsequential as just not even one of your final four. It just felt like he was only in here a couple minutes, and then once Lesnar was in, he was dumped out quick.
Yeah. It doesn't really kind of bode well for WrestleMania unless it's like one of those things where hey, we'll beat him as much as we can because we're ultimately going to crown him anyway. But I mean, as we know, it's never the best way to.
But why are you moving him
build a
to
challenger.
SmackDown then? If you have any championship aspirations for this guy, like that doesn't make any sense when your SmackDown title has its program set.
You're right. Yeah. So there's probably a good chance it's not happening. I mean, up until today, I think everything was still possible. You know, we could have had a situation where Seth beat Roman and Roman chases Brock on Raw. But now the cards are kind of, on the table, and I don't know what it means for Big E.
Number 28, Shane McMahon. Shane comes out and he immediately goes after Kevin Owens, and it results in Shane McMahon eliminating Kevin Owens. So Shane is back on TV. Randy Orton.
Yeah, do you think he sticks around?
Yes, I do.
What program do you see him with?
I don't know. I heard a name, but I was warned that it is it's not set in stone. So I don't want to throw out the name and then it ends up changing.
Because I'm trying to think if we had any teases of interactions between Shane and anybody else, and nothing.
Well, in this match, it was only Owens. He eliminated Owens,
which I felt to me was more like just kind of reminding us of their past. And
that seemed like more of a callback rather than looking to the future. 29th was Randy Orton, and he got a big response here in St. Louis, and he immediately hits Big E with an RKO, and then he and Riddle just toss out Big E. So that was that.
Mm-hmm.
And the crowd was very disappointed.
He was, outside of Brock Lesnar, he was tied with Brock Lesnar as the favorite in the betting.
Big E was a huge favorite the whole time leading up to this, but not a very dramatic ending. I don't think him not winning was doom for him, but it's more so your portrayal. He wasn't even a player at the end of this, which I think is more so telling. And it's just, you compound that with,
maybe they're trying to Kofi Mania Big E by just treating him like shit and getting the audience to hijack the show by screaming his name and forcing him in there. Maybe that's the strategy.
Well, I hope there's some strategy for him. Riddle came off Otis's back and delivered an RKO to McIntyre, and then Orton and Riddle just did several spots together, and they were very popular here, the two of them, and they eliminated Otis.
That step up RKO was the second best cutter of the week.
Yes. This was a tough week to try and crack the number one spot for a cutter. And 30th, Brock Lesnar. And he comes in, he just starts delivering suplexes. He reunited with Randy Orton, who was probably not wanting to take any elbows from this man.
And I don't think he did. It was a quick elimination.
Lesnar hit Bad Bunny with the F5, tossing him out. So Bad Bunny got everything he could have wanted and more in this 10 minutes he was in this Rumble.
Does he stick around for Mania?
What was interesting in this match is you would think Bad Bunny in the Rumble, you'd have some connection with Damian Priest. There was none of that. It was him and Ray were kind of paired as a unit together. I would think that if Bad Bunny, he's got that tour his tour doesn't start though until the spring or so. They just put it on TV. I can't remember when the first date
February. Is. I'm looking at Ticketmaster for Bad Bunny tickets, and he's going pretty all the way until April 3rd is his last date. That's being that's listed right now. What day is Mania?
Oh, I thought his tour that they were promoting. I think they promoted another tour that starts later, but he's on tour now.
It's going from February until April.
Oh, then I'd say that's probably very unlikely.
Well, what day is Mania?
Well, it's not being around. It's preparing for it. On top of that,
True.
Mania is on
you can do a spot, I suppose. But
what's Mania? Okay. The first weekend of April are the 2nd and 3rd.
Oh, okay. He's touring, so he's in Miami, so that's not happening.
Oh, there you go. Lesnar eliminates Bad Bunny. He eliminates Riddle, and then needed multiple tries to finally send Shane McMahon over with a clothesline. So it's down to Lesnar and Drew McIntyre playing off of their history. The F5 gets countered. McIntyre misses the Claymore, and then Lesnar sends out McIntyre with an F5 in 51 minutes and 14 seconds. I think as soon as Lesnar came out, I think everyone knew Lesnar was not losing twice in one night. He rarely loses twice in 1 year. So that's a lot of people will be upset at Brock Lesnar winning this. That is your main event for WrestleMania. And that's what they're using this show for. And that's what they use this season for. They are going to push their stars that they see as their most valuable. And it's certainly, you can look at, the entirety of this match that, you need to be creating new stars. And when you don't, you have a Rumble like this that felt very underwhelming in terms of star power and talent, that you had any suspension of disbelief is a player that is at this level. But that is how it ended.
Yeah. I mean, I do think surprises are a crutch that you don't want to rely on too often, but I do think you need some of it. This year, I guess due to promotional tie-in, they decided to spend one of those surprises on Johnny Knoxville, and I'm not even mad at that because I thought he provided one of the more memorable moments of this Rumble. The other spot was spent on Bad Bunny because I guess why not? He's available. He could do a lot in the ring, and you'll probably get some good coverage out of it. And then you have Shane McMahon, and that's kind of it. The rest of this Rumble was really just pretty monotonous. No interesting reunions, no interesting kind of interactions between people we haven't seen in a long time. It just felt like one name after another coming out and kind of, going through the motions of doing a professional wrestling battle royal. It was, I think, one of the more unmemorable, weaker, unentertaining, boring Rumbles I've seen, I think, in a while.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of it was more so just kind of like just an overall picture of like the men's scene that you saw in this Rumble. And I didn't find it to be all that entertaining of a Royal Rumble. The show as a whole, I'm more like thumbs in the middle on this show. I'm not going up on this one, but I can't say thumbs down either.
Yeah, I really enjoyed like Seth versus Roman, the start of it. I mean, people are going to be disappointed in the outcome. I'm not as upset about it because I thought there's storyline purpose for the DQ. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Lesnar versus Lashley up until but the shenanigans again had to, like, in Rumble season, in Mania season, I think I give a lot more leeway to like seeing that, having them give up certain finishes in order to get to WrestleMania. I really enjoyed the Women's Rumble. So I'm a barely. You're right. Like, there's too much bad on the show too, or at least like just uninteresting on the show. Especially like the Men's Rumble, I think was a real disappointment, and that's especially if you're going to end the show with that I think really had to stick its landing. So I'm probably thumbs in the middle as well.
All right, those were our thoughts on the Royal Rumble, and now we will send it over to you.
Yeah, we're going to take calls, John.
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. So if you're in the Zoom room right now, Double Plus patrons have access to all of our premium live events, post shows here at the Post Wrestling Cafe. So it is the beginning of the month starting on Tuesday. So if you're thinking about joining in, wait till Tuesday. Thank you for your support. And let's go to Hansi. Hansi, what do you think of the Rumble?
I gotta say, it was a pretty underwhelming show for me. I think I guess it was better because I was actually out and about, like at someone's house to watch this, and the people that I was watching with don't watch WWE regularly, so they kind of enjoyed it as a one-off show. But so they understand why I was not liking it, and I was talking about AEW most of the time during it, and trying to convince them to watch it. But no, I just felt like even the matches that were good, I just felt the finishes were underwhelming, and I think this may have been one of the worst men's Royal Rumbles in a long. Like, the women's Royal Rumble was decent. I'll admit I had more fun watching that. But like you guys hit on the head, like there's like nobody on the roster in the male side that felt like they were over. Like, I can say this, right, and I know people are getting mad because I'm comparing AEW and all that. I felt after FDR versus Lee Johnson and Brock Anderson, they felt more like stars after just a simple match like that, rather than Owens, over than Madcap Moss, Corbin, and all that. So I listen. I knew it was gonna be like this, whatever. But I gotta say, I'm not really looking forward to it. Maybe they have some swerves for us. I don't know. It's always unpredictable. But I gotta say, I am kind of intrigued by Ronda Rousey being back, and I'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's cool. And thank you guys for all the work you guys do.
Thanks, Santi. Yeah. I have to say, I think, aside from, I think just a general feeling of these mid-carders not really moving up at all in position. Like, there's no real forward momentum, I think, with a good chunk of these names. How many of them have even really stated an intention to win the Rumble, or at least, like, given the audience any sort of, like, story about why they want to win the Rumble? It's just, I declare, and I'm going to WrestleMania, like, just sort of like a blanket generic statement. Nothing about really like what doing well in this Rumble is going to do for their careers. There's no kind of like sub story or subplot that like I feel like is a missed opportunity for everybody who gets to participate in one of these things.
I think it's also a show that you look at that it's not necessarily like listing off like your card for WrestleMania, but it by now, like at least planting the seeds of where you want to see things going. And you're coming out of this and you can see Lesnar Reigns and you can see Rousey and Charlotte. And beyond that, like you're just kind of like guessing at this, but even like what are you really compelled that you want to see at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How much build did we get towards any other programs in the midst of that men's Rumble?
Yeah, like what are those matches that are coming out of this? Like are you excited to see Shane McMahon continue? Are you excited?
We don't even have a sense of the direction though. Like from his interaction in this Rumble, it's just he just showed up. That's all.
Yeah, it's like Naomi and Sonia. That's going to continue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we go to forum.postwrestling.com where all patrons can leave their feedback after every one of our podcasts or post shows, I should say. We got a Brandon from Oshawa who says, this company is so disappointing. I was really looking forward to this show, and it was just the same old shit. I don't know why it's so hard for them to do clean finishes. What reason did Rollins need to be protected in that match? And then after all the talk of possible Forbidden Door appearances, we get hardly any surprises. Not that I expected any, but I was hoping. The best parts of the show were Mickey coming out to her Impact theme and Bad Bunny. Otherwise, this was a garbage show. Well, to be fair to them, they never promised Forbidden Door appearances. I don't know who promised it. I mean, it was just kind of more rumor on the internet. So I don't know if you can really. I don't know if it's really fair to fault them for that. But I do think surprises are to be expected. And I mean, you got Bad Bunny, you got Shane McMahon, and I would say for most people that probably isn't quite enough. Why did Rollins need to be protected? I don't know.
It only makes sense that a finish like that, you want to squeeze another match out of those two. And then it becomes what is the best way to, at the same time, there are people that are tuning into this show that you want to give them something satisfying while also extending the program. And that's where you have to be creative. And, I saw like I wasn't a fan of the finish, but I saw other people that weren't as turned off by it. So I think that that all comes with kind of like your latitude towards a finish like that. But that to me is the only thing that makes sense is they want to get another match out of this. If they're not going back to Reigns and Rollins, then I would hate that finish a lot more if they're just going their separate ways after this and they just did not want to beat Rollins.
I suppose I also wonder if they do have bigger plans for Seth Rollins. Again, could he be a challenger for Lashley's championship?
I guess anything's possible because Lashley, it's like, who are your options for Lashley? Like, we haven't really talked about that. That's where you're kind of looking at your depth right now. And I would have said a Big E, but I feel a lot less confident in that after watching tonight's show that gave you no kind of push towards that. But you do have this Chamber show and they probably
Shane McMahon.
That's totally possible. But in terms of the Chamber, you kind of have to set up those participants pretty quickly. Like I imagine Monday we'll have a pretty good sense of that because they only have a few weeks to promote this show.
We got a Jesse up next.
Jesse, I enjoyed the first 14 minutes. Then it was all downhill from there. The DQ finish to Rollins and Reigns was astoundingly lazy and poorly executed. The women's Rumble put me to sleep. Music is all boringly generic, and the Lesnar storyline was painfully obvious and made the men's Rumble pointless, though Bad Bunny was a fun surprise. And how about Big E's elimination? I blinked and missed it, but I'm sure they've got a great story they're telling with him. Just let it play out, right?
We got a Luke from Quebec who says, I don't watch much WWE anymore and mostly listen to your podcast. I figured the Rumble is always fun, so made sure to catch this one, and even got one of my old friends who stopped watching wrestling to join me. By the end of the night, I apologized to him for wasting his time. Definitely one of the worst, most boring Rumble matches I've seen. Even the Kofi spot was botched. This whole Reigns is shaken by the Shield breakup, even though the Shield had reunited just 2 years ago, is stupid. Whole event was bad. Terrible finishes. Women's Rumble was okay. I can't believe we're getting Reigns Lesnar again for Mania. How many times is enough?
Yeah, the Shield reunion in 2019, that never happened. That was Reigns hates Rollins for what he did.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that this whole, Roman has been traumatized by the Shield's breakup. Like that really came out of nowhere. And feels like it's something they just kind of wedged in there to set up a story for tonight's match. So I definitely think you can at least, criticize the lack of foresight perhaps in how it doesn't really play into how we've been portraying Roman Reigns the past several years. But I thought it certainly made the match better.
Yeah, I think on its own you can judge these. It's just it's odd that he's reverted now to like the badass tribal chief. While if you want to extend the Seth thing, it's like the heat is that like he's rattled by this guy and their past. It's like two very different characters coming out of tonight's show that he is like in programs with.
Yeah, one kind of makes you sympathetic for him, and the other, I mean, we're supposed to kind of look at him as this evil villain, right, against Brock. So, yeah, I mean, it's layers. John is a very complex character. We me or you?
I'll go to this one. Chris from Baltimore. I thought the show as a whole had exceeded my expectations, and then the men's rumble happened. It was pretty much just a showcase for the poor state of the main roster, as I found myself thinking nobody in this ring has a chance for 95% of it. Brock winning was logical, and I can live with it, but the spots throughout the match were just too lackluster and predictable to keep my interest. It was so bad that even Kofi decided he had had enough. They should have went with Bad Bunny.
He intentionally botched.
I want to get out of here.
Yeah, maybe. Kate from Montreal says 4 hours and the only real surprise was the WrestleMania sign catching fire twice. The show peaked for me with the first match, but a well-built story and engaging feud is wasted because Reigns Lesnar is now the clear endpoint for Mania. The rest was very predictable, and other than Roman, Lesnar, and Ronda, no one comes out looking particularly strong. Lashley took a visual pin before winning the interference, which definitely diminishes his standing. Both Rumble matches felt like a race to get to the inevitable conclusion, so even people who got decent showings, like Rhea, feel inconsequential because they're so obviously not a part of any larger plans. An emphatic meh.
All right. This is from Billy, who was at the show live. Stale booking aside, it's unreal how much more enjoyable a WWE show is with no bad camera cuts, commentary, or holograms. Other than Randy and Ronda, Bad Bunny got the biggest pop. Onto the booking, I just have to say why they needed to ruin 2 title matches and both Rumbles to get to the Mania result. Anyone with a pulse can see a mile away anyway.
I mean, what exactly does he mean by ruining the Rumble? I guess so people are complaining that Ronda and Brock are too obvious.
Yeah, and to me, it's like Lesnar and Reigns has so clearly been the program, and I never really believed that just because you can see where they're going, that's somehow a bad thing. Like that, like it comes down to your interest in the story. If you're not interested in the story, you're going to be thinking the destination is lackluster. If it's a compelling story, like, yeah, this is where it's going. And if you're mapping this backwards, tonight's booking made sense in that case with Lesnar. Like you gave a reason to get out of this title situation. It was costed by Reigns, and then he wins the Rumble. Like that is your main program where you're going. Now, if you hate that direction, you're going to be upset with this, but they are booking towards a match that they have earmarked for WrestleMania.
Yeah, and in the case of Ronda, I mean, she has become available. And you have 2 WrestleManias that you're trying to sell on for live attendance and also on Peacock, and you're also trying to attract a lot of mainstream attention. So we have to remember, yeah, they could have saved Ronda, I suppose, for a Elimination Chamber win, but I mean, the Rumble is where you're going to get much more coverage and much more press, and this is the time where you start promoting WrestleMania by telling them, hey, Ronda Rousey is going to be in the main event. Brock Lesnar is going to be in the main event in our biggest show of the year, 2 months from now. So, I mean, does it make for very unpredictable stories for people who are watching this very closely? Unfortunately not. I think there's probably a great balancing act that can satisfy both the hardcore and mainstream, business audiences. But they're clearly maybe not as interested in surprising for the sake of surprise, and I can't really fault them for that. You want to go?
You're
yeah, okay. I'll go to Anthony here, who says Ronda Rousey winning the Rumble was akin to Batista winning in 2014. Somebody who hasn't wrestled in years and win it, sad. The company has not created any other stars that you can believe can win. It is telling that they went with Ronda to most likely feud with Charlotte. Ronda didn't need to win. Neither did Brock. Poor Kofi. The never-ending pain with the New Day. Yes, it is. Yeah. Again, they want to put their biggest stars in the biggest match of the year. Like, the goal is to have the most attractive matches for the biggest show of the year.
And quite frankly, like, they had not built up a whole lot of alternatives beyond that. Like, who was winning that men's match?
Yeah, and that's the point of criticism. So Anthony, I think, is suggesting that you could have used the Rumble to build your next star. I just don't know
who is it. Who's that big star?
Okay, well, Big E. Okay, if they gave Big E the Rumble, he's still not a bigger star than Brock Lesnar. If they gave, Bianca Belair the Rumble win, I don't think she is as big of a star as Ronda Rousey, to the press,
If they had just brought back Ronda Rousey and she was eliminated in this Royal Rumble, I would certainly question that logic.
Yeah, and also remember the Saudi Arabia show. Like, we have another opportunity to set up our challengers that will get them into the Rumble, and you might even get those people into the main event. But I think on the Rumble night, with so much, more people watching, so much more media watching, this is the time where you use to promote your biggest mainstream names, and that's Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey. Okay, he says, I liked Niven versus Lynch, but the crowd was dead for it because no one believed Niven could win. Lashley Lesnar was boring. The men's Rumble was awful. The company can't create any stars they have, and the one that they have were either unceremoniously eliminated or fed to Lesnar. Lesnar didn't need to win the Rumble.
Okay, let's go to Brian in New Jersey here. I can't get upset at the results of the Rumbles because I've been following the news. What I will take issue with is the work itself. I felt the Women's Rumble was quite haphazard with a lot of sloppy action and 30-second cameos from past stars.
I never watched the Rumble for action. Like, the wrestling in all the Rumbles are always bad.
Varying degrees at times, but I mean, a battle royal, you're not going to necessarily have a classic all the time. It's certainly, especially these Rumbles, they're much more reliant on sort of, your stories, your entrances, and your outcomes. Like, that is, it's a very fast moving match that gets away with that it still can be a very exciting match. Goes on to say, when there are a few newer women that could have made the match better, I thought the men's Rumble was slightly better, but with some bad direction that hurt it. My favorite match was Reigns and Rollins.
We got a Brian from Snowden, New Jersey, who says,
I just read that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we got an MJ then, who says, in one title match, the champion wouldn't break a hold, lost the match, and retained his title. In the other title match, the champion was interfered with after the first ref was bumped. The second ref sees this, and he runs past Roman. The champion loses the match, loses the title with the second ref and blatant interference. Yeah, that definitely, I think, it can be criticized. It's silly to have a referee see exactly what was happening and still count the pinfall. He says, these two things on the same show involving some of the same people make absolutely no sense. I'm not trying to nitpick, but this is just made up rules to fit the creative direction entirely. It overshadows that both title matches were two of the best recent WWE title matches for me before their respective finishes.
On the refereeing, I'm going to say this. I want to know where all the people that get so upset over those Lucha Brothers matches, where those people were for that mixed tag.
You mean like the lack of enforcing of the mixed tag rules?
They literally called it out on commentary that there's a lot for this referee to handle. I mean, it was like 2-on-2 spots. And you know what? The match was better for it, where they were doing the tandem stuff than they were just isolated.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a big issue with it. Okay, let's do one more here. Bear with me, everyone. I've been awake since about 6 a.m. David Myers is our last one here. I like the show, but the men's rumble was a massive disappointment. It was one of the worst I remember seeing, and goes on to say, really disappointing. I wasn't planning on watching future events, but I could have been convinced. The main event convinced me not to watch. I did love the women's rumble match and like Piper Niven versus Becky Lynch. I guess Piper Niven is people's protest towards Doudrop. They will not call her that.
It's a very silly name. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that going to wrap us up, Way?
Yeah, well, let's go to one more piece here from Matthew in the chat room, who sends me a message. He says, my first WWE pay-per-view in a couple of years, having paid for all of the AEW ones from the beginning. It was fine. They have 2 male stars, a good women's roster, and everyone else is just there. But anyway, the only thing going for this company is the stadiums. If AEW could bump up to a regular stadium shows, the final aspect of WWE, which interests me, the spectacle of big shows, would be gone.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us live tonight for the Royal Rumble post show. We are going to be back on Monday. We'll be live at 1 p.m. Eastern time with the post daily news show. And then Monday night, rewind to Raw to go through Raw from Cincinnati on Monday night, where Ronda Rousey will be on the show. And we will have a whole review of that show as well. So that is it, Way.
Yeah, join us tomorrow for the post daily news update, 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Monday. We have a day off tomorrow, Way.
Oh shit! Wow, it's Sunday right now. Damn! Wow, what are you gonna do all day?
Sleep. No, I won't be doing any sleeping.
Hey, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to win the Up Next Rumble. Okay, you guys might have been disappointed by the outcome here, but let me tell you, you're gonna be disappointed again, because I'm gonna be the Brock Lesnar of the Up Next Rumble. It's obvious. You can put your money on me, all right? All the other entrants, you're doing the job. Forget it, okay? I am taking the Up Next Rumble tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern time, twitch.tv/upnextpodcast. That's it.
All right, there you go. Way's coming for you. The Up Next Rumble. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.